What's up, everybody? It's Pikel, bringing you a duo pod for the Infinity Edge. This would have been the second ever duo, well, not second ever duo pod, but the second ever duo pod featuring the esports plug, John himself. John, great job on that video yesterday. Uh,
Thanks, buddy. Hopefully they can hear me today.
yeah, yeah. I mean, honestly, when we were done with the video, I'm like, wow, that was a great video. And then of course I made a mistake with the audio. So that is my bad. I tried to salvage it with a quick 10-minute video. I think I went over a lot of the same stuff, but obviously it didn't do the slate justice the same way that we did yesterday.
Yeah, no, I thought we had a good video too, but here's to today. Today will be just as good.
It will. The only problem with the audio of this video is going to be potential firework noises in the background. So before we get into tomorrow's slate with the LCS, let's just go over the games real quick that we've seen so far. So XL beat Vitality. During our video last night, we were kind of mentioning how Vitality's roster, like, some of the pieces make sense, and like the leader thing might have been short-sighted. Like, yes, it's a good meta for them right now, but even in this meta, they're not really allowing self-made to be the focal point of the team, which is probably what I mean, at least from what I've seen, is that's what most of the best teams in the world are doing right now. Their junglers are basically just out of control every game. SLT had a really rough game, but XL, another good one. It's going to be a great team to go against moving forward. Next week they have Mad Lions and Fnatic, so maybe there won't be an actionable spot. Just like conceptually, that's what I would be doing, is going against them the next time they play a mid-tier team or a lower-tier team. Astralis and Schalke. Astralis won. Not too surprising that they can go toe-to-toe with Schalke. I mean, talent-wise, they're pretty similar. Fnatic beat SK. Fuck SK. Misfits Misfits beat G2. Solid win for Misfits. And then Rogue beat Mad Lions. I think Rogue was the highest scoring team on the slate, right?
Yeah, I believe so. And then that Misfits G2 game was a complete bust, thanks to G2 throwing the Soul and 10,000 gold lead somehow.
Yeah. I can't believe that guy Dracos that is like a caster on. What do you think about 10k versus Elder Dragon buff? I feel like I get what he's saying. Like, yes, 10,000 gold's worth of stats are going to probably win you more fights, but I think that Elder Dragon, the effect of Elder Dragon, has got to be worth around 10,000.
It's worth an awful lot of gold. I definitely think like the clear play for G2, if they were gonna back there, like they shouldn't have backed, but if they were gonna back, then they have to just hang out in the base and force the other team to come to them underneath the turrets. Just wait for the Elder Dragon to run out, and then everything should be free once the Elder Dragon runs out. It didn't really make much sense at all for them to try to fight
Yeah.
right after the Elder was taken. Just a macro mistake there.
Yeah. Yep. Gotta agree with that one. All right, so that's it for the LEC. There's no LEC slate tomorrow because they don't have any games tomorrow. Today we had TSM against Immortals. It was a pretty low kill score game. I think they had 15 kills, a lot of uncorrelated stuff, so it was pretty low scoring. Even Geniuses against CLG, unfortunately, only 15 kills, pretty low scoring, and not very correlated. C9 against Team Liquid. C9 won. C9 didn't have a crazy performance either. Really weird first three games. They were all kind of not great for DraftKings scoring. Like, they were okay, but they weren't great. And then the Dignitas Golden Guardians match, Dig had 20 kills, but they basically scored as if it was a 14 or 15 kill game anyways. That was
Yeah,
bizarre.
that is the horror situation for like I guess it's the miracle situation depending on which side you're on. But
Mm-hmm.
either the miracle or horror situation in DFS is when one team gets a lot of kills early and then the other team turns the game around and eventually wins.
Yeah.
That tends to create like the highest scoring
Mm-hmm.
games because the team that's coming from behind has to win like 4 or 5 team fights in order to win the game. So they end up getting an awful lot of kills. That's pretty much what played out in that Dignitas Golden Guardians game to lead to a 20 kill game.
Exactly, yeah. And wasn't it like a double plot twist game? Like, I'm pretty sure it was, right?
Yeah, I mean, it looked like Dignitas was going to win early, and then Golden Guardians came back and got a sizable lead, and then threw their second Baron, and Dignitas stole the second Baron and then just went on from there and took the game pretty easily.
Yeah. Just only things you see in North America, I guess. FlyQuest and 100 Thieves are playing right now. Interesting draft. A lot of strong champions got through, but I think we all expect 100 Thieves to pull that one out. So let's just go to tomorrow's slate. Let me get the contest in front of me. But first game is Golden Guardians against Evil Geniuses. Lane by lane, Impact is better than Solo. Svenskeren and Contract are both better than Iconic. Jizuke is better than Ablaze Olive. Danny and Ignar have had a much better season than Stixay and Chime. I think that this would be a fun spot to have Golden Guardians do something. I think it would be a good DFS spot for them if I like their winning chances better, but I'm most likely not going to play Golden Guardians. And after EG's kind of let down, maybe people go off of them. Maybe it's a good time to just double down on Evil Geniuses.
Yeah, it's an interesting spot because Evil Geniuses projects the best on the slate. I was just running through it as you were talking about it, and they're the top scoring expectation at every position except for AD carry. Mm-hmm. So they project for the most points on the slate. The problem is they're playing the easiest team in the league. They're probably the biggest money line favorite on the slate. It's possible maybe 100 Thieves versus CLG might be a bigger money line favorite. But I'm guessing that one of those two games is the biggest money line favorite on the slate. So you're getting a huge money line favorite against the worst team in the league. Like, they're just going to be so owned. It's one of those spots where they're a really great play, but everybody in the world is aware that they're a great play. It's not like today where I thought you could maybe get lower ownership with people moving over to 100 Thieves against FlyQuest. Mm-hmm. There's not really like another matchup on this slate that I think is going to steal people away from Evil Geniuses. They're just clearly in the best spot. So maybe in the bigger GPPs, it might be a good spot to just fade that game because Evil Geniuses is clearly the best spot, but I don't think that's any sort of secret that's going to give you an edge.
Yeah. The crazy thing, the ownership for Evil Geniuses wasn't even that crazy today. Like,
yeah, them and, was at 20%. CLG were pretty close.
Yeah, Danny was at 17%. Svenskeren was at 12.5%. Like, getting one of the best spots for DFS purposes at 12.5% was just kind of insane. Like, knowing that, if you knew that going into it, you probably would have had, what, like 2 or 3 times as much Evil Geniuses? I'm sure you played a lot of Evil Geniuses to begin with, right?
Yeah, I mean, all my lineups today were either 4 Evil Geniuses or 4 CLG. I was expecting that game to be the most important fantasy game. I did think their ownership was going to be a little reduced because 100 Thieves was in a spot that I thought would look better to like casual people with a bigger money line. So I thought we could get slightly reduced ownership, and we did. They just didn't really score well enough, especially Impact, who had a really rough game with 7 deaths, really killed a lot of my lineups.
Wow, yeah. I think Danny is the highest scoring player so far. He has like 42-ish?
Yeah, I think 4 Evil Geniuses lineups that don't have Impact in them are looking pretty solid at the moment. Impact's a lineup killer, though.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's basically that. Next, and that was minus 250 to plus 187, by the way. So they are the 3rd biggest favorite on the slate, according to the money line.
TL, one of the top 3, or one of the top 2?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then 100 Thieves over CLG. So the next match, 100 Thieves over CLG, minus 333 to plus 242 for CLG. Let me get the scoreboards up for today's games. I feel like they had a pretty interesting draft, right? Even for the Evil Geniuses CLG game.
I'm trying to remember exactly what was in there. Impact was on set for sure, because I remember all the deaths.
Every death. It was okay. So CLG had Finn on Gwen, Rek'Sai, Azir, Kai'Sa, Nautilus, and then Evil Geniuses had Set, Diana, Lucian, Tristana, Braum. And the one thing that, like, I don't know if the analyst mentioned it, but for Evil Geniuses team composition, you have 4 auto attack champions plus Braum. I think Braum's passive is like one of the most broken things in the game, and a lot of teams play. So I think there are a lot of teams that play around it, but the analysts never mention specifically like why these champions work so well together. Like Braum Lucian, everybody knows about Braum Lucian. We don't see it as often in the bot lane anymore, but just a really good champion in this meta, like the disengage meta, where there's all these fighters and stuff like that. Braum's in a really good spot right now. It's just you don't have the same kind of agency in lane. But for a team like CLG, this is the perfect kind of team composition for DFS purposes. Like if they managed to get a little bit further ahead of Evil Genius, they would have had a realistic chance of winning this game, because Pobelter on Azir is really good for DFS, but Wild Turtle can kind of throw anything. So in their matchup against 100 Thieves, you're not going to feel great about playing them against 100 Thieves, but I don't know. We have had at least one letdown spot for 100 Thieves so far, right? Where they just gave up a clunker.
They got perfect gamed by CLG. The first weekend CLG brought out the Wombo combo comp. Yes. They got like 24-0'd or something like that.
Yes. I think we did mention that yesterday.
That was like their one loss of the season so far, I think.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, we don't expect that to happen again. But, is it worth a lineup? What do you think the ownership percentage is going to be for 100 Thieves tomorrow?
It's possible that I try to take into account like a lot of chatter that I hear like on Twitter and the Discord and things like that when I'm talking about ownership. Who are people talking about? And the one thing that stands out to me is people want to play against Golden Guardians. That seems to be like the big thing. And it's understandable. I mean, Golden Guardians is probably the worst team in the league. But I always hear like people talking about wanting to be against Golden Guardians. So I wonder if tomorrow might actually be an opposite version of the spot I was talking about today, where today I said EG might be lower owned because 100 Thieves was playing against Golden Guardians. Mm-hmm. It's possible tomorrow that 100 Thieves might be a little bit under owned because EG is playing against Golden Guardians. And you can't. It's the same situation where they're both huge favorites, so fitting them both is like nearly impossible. So only one of those teams like is going to be in a lineup. I think maybe 100 Thieves might be under owned tomorrow because of Evil Geniuses playing against Golden Guardians.
That's interesting. Today, 100 Thieves up against FlyQuest was still the highest owned team, and they are like between 29.5% for FBI all the way down to 16.5% for Huhi, which that's kind of weird, having Huhi that low when you have the 80 carry so
I think
high.
It's because they're so expensive that people are like being forced to play them as 2 stacks because they didn't want to try to fit them as a 4 stack, I think is probably what's going on there.
Yeah. So if you had to guess over under 20% ownership for 100 Thieves, you're thinking right about that or under?
Yeah, I'm guessing they're going to end up right about where EG ended up today, like between 14 and 20%. I will say it's possible that backfires and it's the opposite, and people play the 100 Thieves and they don't play EG against Golden Guardians. So I think I might say to the listeners to try to pick one of those two, either 100 Thieves or Evil Geniuses, whichever one you think is going to be lower owned, and just get all in on whichever one that is. I think they're both in really great spots. Whichever one you think is going to be lower owned, I would just go with it and play a bunch of combos of that team.
Okay.
Also, I have no disrespect for Golden Guardians or CLG tomorrow. Evil Geniuses and 100 Thieves are both very good teams to beat as well. So if you're in the big fields and you want to mess with CLG or Golden Guardians, I don't have any issue with that as well. I wouldn't do it in the small fields, but if the field's big, go for it.
Sure. So someday against Finn, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious in all these spots. Like, someday against Finn, someday's a better player. Finn does have some interesting champions and, like, does have the carry upside, but I don't know. That's just really tough. Broxa on Rek'Sai. I do like the Rek'Sai pick a lot. I thought that Rek'Sai would make an appearance earlier on for a lot of these teams. And that gives me hope that JDG and Kanavi can, kind of turn it all the way around and make them one of the better teams in China again. Poser. Yeah, Broxa, Abadage and Pobelter. Abadage is much better. FBI and Wild Turtle. Everyone knows that I hate Wild Turtle. And Huhi and Smoothie, rounding it out. So it's what ownership does CLG need to be for you to want to play like 10% of them? They would need to be like 4%, 5%. Do you think they can get that high tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, I want them to be like mid-single digits. I definitely think they could be that low. One of my things with CLG, though, is if I'm going to play CLG tomorrow, I'm not going to play 10% CLG. If I'm going to play CLG tomorrow, I'll play like 50% CLG.
Yeah.
Because the worst feeling is having a team like putting some CLG in your lineups and having them win and still not having the right lineup. So if I'm playing CLG, I'm going to play them like I'm going to play CLG EG, CLG TSM, CLG Cloud9, CLG Dignitas, CLG Team Liquid. Like I'm just going to play a bunch of different combos if I'm playing CLG tomorrow.
Yeah. One thing that might be surprising, one thing that's surprising to me is that CLG was very highly owned today. Like I get it, they're up against Golden Guardians, or they were up against Evil Geniuses.
EG, yeah.
But do you think that because they won't be able to get that same ownership against 100 Thieves. Like today, FlyQuest up against 100 Thieves, they're all in like 1%, 1.5%, 2%.
Yeah. I don't think you're going to see the same kind of ownership today. I think there's definitely a narrative out there that playing against Evil Geniuses is a very good thing to be doing, which is kind of true. I mean, when EG loses, they give up a lot of points.
Yeah.
I think people might be underestimating how good Evil Geniuses is. Like, I think they could, like, there's really not that much point in playing a team like GGS against them unless the field's really big, because I think GGS is just not nearly as good as EG. But, yeah, playing against Evil Geniuses, that does seem to be something that gives a team some extra ownership.
But what do you think about CLG versus Golden Guardians? Because CLG got up to like 15, 16% in like the main carry spots against them. So like, do you think that's going to happen again? Like, could you see?
No, I would see them being like half the ownership that that they were today. Like down in like the mid, maybe to higher mid single digits would be my guess. Because also you have to remember that every time CLG loses, people are losing more and more faith in them. They had that 3-0 week, and everyone was like, CLG's back, baby. They're going to be good, including me. I thought they were turning it around.
Yeah.
And then since then, they haven't won another game, and they've looked pretty awful in some of them. So.
Yeah. But do you think that Golden Guardians ownership is going to be up at the same level that CLG was? That's because, like, if Golden Guardians is going to get up to 15%, right, and you think that people are basically disrespecting Evil Geniuses, do you think that's like a dead 15%, like to just completely stay away from?
Yeah, I don't know if they'll get as high as CLG. I think there was more hope for CLG than there is for Golden Guardians, but I do think they'll have an ownership that's kind of elevated, probably like in the 10 to 12% range, somewhere like that.
Were there any lineup combinations specifically that you wanted to see for 100 Thieves?
If you're going to play 100 Thieves, you have a couple options. You can play them with an underdog. The one thing I wouldn't do with 100 Thieves is play them with a small favorite or a small underdog. So, like, I'm imagining Cloud9 and TSM, just looking at the prices on my screen real quick. I imagine Cloud9 and TSM are right in the middle somewhere. TSM looks way too cheap, actually. So I'm guessing you're going to see a lot of, like, 100 Thieves in TSM, Evil Geniuses in TSM, probably 100 Thieves and Evil Geniuses with Cloud9. Something like those are teams that are priced right in the middle there where they probably fit all right. Like, here, if you play 100 Thieves in TSM, you're probably getting like an 80 carry captain. Let me just quickly optimize it. Yeah, I mean, you can go mid captain with 100 Thieves and oh wait, that's Immortals. I didn't put TSM in there. That makes a difference.
What about Evil Geniuses?
Yeah, still mid captain.
What about EG 100 Thieves?
EG 100 Thieves, I'm guessing you have to play like team captain or support captain. Yeah, support captain with 400 Thieves comes out as the optimal. I will say a lineup like this can actually be pretty good if you're playing in a field size of like 50 to 100.
Yeah.
I actually don't mind a lineup like this. People shy away from support captain big time. Mm-hmm. And if these are the two highest scoring teams by a fair bit, it's not that hard for support captain to be optimal. I mean, if you look at the scoring for like Huhi or Ignar, they both have games this season where they're in like the mid 30s.
Yeah.
And that's what you're hoping for from an 80 carry for like, Dignitas against Immortals. If your 80 carry gets 35, you're pretty happy. And Ignar and Huhi have both had games like that this season. So it's not that crazy to just play a lineup like this if it's like 50 to 100 people. If you're playing like a 5,000 person tournament, I do shy away from this a little bit. You can still play it, but I'd rather like maybe play a one-off team slot or something to try to get it upgraded captain.
Yeah, and I agree with the Ignar stuff. I love Ignar. I think that he's the kind of support where when you see something like Pyke, Pantheon, like these kinds of champions that Hillsong is playing right now in the LEC, if Ignar's paying attention to that, breaks out a couple of those champions, he has like legitimate 10 kill upside. Like it would be a fiesta of a game, but he definitely has that in his range of outcomes depending on draft. So let's go to C9 TSM. So
yeah, this is an interesting one.
Yeah, C9 TSM. C9's minus 140. TSM is plus 106. If C9 lost to Team Liquid today and it looked bad, do you think that TSM would have been listed as a favorite? I mean, the line was probably already posted, right?
Yeah, it was already posted. I am surprised. I didn't look at the line. What odds do you have there for this matchup?
It is Cloud9 minus 140, TSM plus 106.
Yeah, it's a little surprising. I mean, the funny part is I don't necessarily disagree with it.
Yeah.
But I'm still really surprised that that's the line that the book put up.
Yeah.
I mean, TSM has been much better this season, like record-wise,
Mm-hmm.
and so I would assume that they would make TSM the favorite here. But like the DraftKings pricing has Cloud9 as like a pretty huge favorite if you compare the salaries of the teams. So I do think TSM can win, but I do think TSM has been a little overrated so far this season. A lot of people saying that they were the second best team in the league behind 100 Thieves, and I haven't really felt that way about them. It seems like a lot of their wins have been very close, and they've had some like really sketchy, like possible loss scenarios that went their way. But I do think Cloud9's a small favorite, but TSM definitely playable given how cheap they are and the fact that they're probably plus 110 or whatever to win. That's with how cheap they are. Plus 110 is pretty good.
Yeah. Fudge against Hooney. Like, I do love Hooney, but I think Fudge has been better this season. Blabber against Spica. I think that Blabber is just a better player overall. Perks against Power Evil, same thing. Sven and Vulcan against Lost and Sword Art, kind of the same thing. I guess stylistically, there aren't many spots where it's like easy to predict what kind of champions they're going to pick or like how the matchups are going to be favored one way or the other, except for in the bot lane. I think that Sven is the most likely to play like Ezreal and just sit at his tower and have to deal with the entire enemy team while the rest of his team tries to make plays. That would scare me a little bit, but I love C9 too much to not play them.
I mean, honestly, I'm a C9 hater, and I still think they're a favorite over TSM for sure.
Yeah, I think that from a DraftKings perspective, I don't know. I don't love the idea of playing against TSM, but I think that we could. I think it's more likely we get into a spot where TSM actually is competitive against C9 and forces C9 into like a later game situation, which would be better for DraftKings. I think that I don't know if Perks was joking about the whole hat thing with like his eyesight, but if that's real,
seems like he's pretty serious. Yeah.
Yeah, if that's real, I mean, I can't believe something like that's real. Like, why doesn't he wear like glasses or something to help reduce glare? Like, I don't get it. I'm sure there's other ways to do it. I don't know. Just seemed really bizarre. I thought it was a joke at first, but then he like seemed very serious about it during the interview. So I'm fine with just all in on C9. I get it. People want to play TSM. Where do you think C9's ownership ends up tomorrow? C9 and TSM.
I kind of feel like this is going to be a popular game to be involved in, but I think people might go to the TSM side. Let me see how Cloud9 fits with these other teams, because I think generally when I look at how to predict ownership, I try to look at how does this team fit with the teams that everybody's going to want.
Mm-hmm.
And I think clearly Evil Geniuses and 100 Thieves are the two teams that are in like prime spots tomorrow. So how Cloud9 fits with them will help me try to figure that out. So you can get a jungle captain with 100 Thieves. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
And then with Evil Geniuses, it's support captain, so that might drive them down a little bit. I don't think you'll see a lot of EG Cloud9. I'm guessing Cloud9 and 100 Thieves might be a reasonably popular lineup tomorrow if it fits with the jungle captain like we were looking at there.
Yeah.
That feels like a popular combination. So I'm going to guess C9 and TSM are pretty highly owned tomorrow since they both fit pretty well with the teams people will want.
So, I mean, that's interesting because, like, the fact that you can get C9 and 100 Thieves together and you can't do that with Evil Geniuses, that probably depresses Evil Geniuses' ownership more. So then you have to look for Evil Geniuses, plus TSM will probably be relatively popular. And then I'm not sure what other teams they would fit with, but we can check that out later on. C9 today was, like, high teens, low 20s. TSM was high single digits. That was against Immortals, right? Yeah, so people were just like, "Oh, that's a bad spot. I don't want to play him." So after today's performance, I don't think you're really going to get many more people running the TSM outside of how they fit with the other teams. So
yeah, and the projection's not very good for this game in general, which is just kind of true of TSM. Like if you look, Hooney is the fourth lowest projection at the top lane. Fudge is the lowest projection. Spica's second lowest. Blabber almost always projects pretty well. But in general, these are like two teams that are in the bottom 5 for projection. So if I think they're going to be kind of owned and they're both generally in the bottom 5 of projection, that feels like a fade for me.
Yeah. Would you agree that C9 TSM against C9 is probably better than most other spots though? Because like I always think to myself like it's going to be a close game. It'll be like 18-14 or something like that.
That is the upside for a game like this, is that they're pretty close teams, and so it's probably not going to be a complete blowout.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with TSM this season is they just don't fight. Even when they're losing, they just give everything up, and so that can, if C9 gets out to a lead at the beginning, they may just let it get from 2K to 7K without ever fighting them,
Yeah.
which is a worry too.
Yeah. I honestly I think Bergson thing because he just seemed like that kind of player. Like I can vividly remember a bunch of like Bjergsen on mid Renekton, and just they would just give away the entire game. It's like you're an early game team. You're supposed to be fighting them, and you're just kind of letting them do whatever they want. Just to
Yeah, I think the biggest upside for this game will be if TSM gets ahead early, because
sure.
Cloud9 is definitely a team that will fight their way back. They're not just going to give up like that. So that's probably the biggest upside, is if TSM gets ahead early.
Definitely. So next game, Team Liquid against FlyQuest. Right now, FlyQuest is playing 100 Thieves pretty tough. I think that Team Liquid is, coming off a loss against C9. That doesn't bother me at all. I think you just instantly go back to Team Liquid. Team Liquid was relatively low owned today because of their matchup against C9. Do you think that it's going to be easy for people to click Team Liquid tomorrow, or do you think that they'll be surprisingly low owned?
They might be kind of low owned, because this is a great matchup for them, like a good fantasy matchup. They project really well, but it does feel like people would prefer to go with 100 Thieves or EG.
Yeah.
Looking at the pricing, like they're pretty expensive too. So it's not like you're getting them at a discount versus those other two teams.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I could see Team Liquid being underowned on this slate. If you
So
play them with like,
yeah,
let's see, a quick, like them and Cloud9, a jungle captain Forts 2, that's a pretty nice lineup. That's something that some people might go to, but it feels like if people are going to play 100 Thieves in this, or TL in this spot, they might just play 100 Thieves. So I could see Team Liquid being slightly underowned.
okay. All right. Next up, Immortals against Dignitas. So this is kind of a puke game in my situation, or in my opinion. They're both teams like stylistically I don't really want to have a piece of. Is Dignitas a bloody loser in general? They're not, right?
Let me just bring up the sheet. I haven't brought up the sheet on one of our streams before, so let me just do it for the sake of amusement here.
Okay. So I'll go through the lane by lane real quick while you look at that. So Revenge against Fake God. I think it's very close. I think that Revenge look better because their team wins more often. But if I had to assume like objectively which player is more talented, I would think it's probably Fake God. Xerxes against Acadian. They're both good players. I think most people that like watch the LCS are more familiar with Acadian for obvious reasons, but Xerxes is the better player historically. Insanity against Yusui. Insanity's probably the better player. I don't really have much of an opinion either way on that one though. And then Neo and Afromu against Raze and Destiny. I think that the Immortals bot lane is probably better. I always give them shit because they're the Australian bot lane, but they're probably better than Neo and Afromu. Still waiting for a pop off performance from Neo like we had at the end of last season.
Yeah, I think Immortals is the better team for me. Looking at their scoring, like we were talking about a minute ago, they both average a good amount of kills and wins, 19.6 for Dig and 17.2 for Immortals. But both teams have a very low death per loss. So you're dealing with teams here that kind of don't close very well, but get closed very easily. So it kind of feels like the DPL historically has been the better indicator of scoring for a match. So it feels like maybe this is not a fantastic match to be involved with, since it's two of the lowest, if not the two lowest, two of the bottom 3 teams in the league when it comes to DPL.
Yeah.
Might be worth avoiding this one in small fields. I do think if you're in the bigger fields, the ownership for this game might be really, really low. There's some really good spots in like on this slate that people are going to want to get to, and this feels like the forgotten game to me. Like
Sure.
Team Liquid looks like a sexy spot, 100 Thieves looks like a sexy spot, EG looks sexy. Either side of Cloud9 and TSM looks good. This game just feels like it's going to be a forgotten game. So if you're in big field GPPs, I kind of like throwing like going heavy on either Dignitas or Immortals, taking a shot there because I think you're going to get really good ownership.
So when you were mentioning the death per loss in teams, like, not giving up as many deaths in their losses, for you, is that more indicative of a team that is like willing to try to outscale and isn't going to fight, or do you think it's like they just get just like rolled in a couple of fights? It's more the former, right?
Yeah, I think it's more the former one. I will say it's been a huge correlation lifetime to just being bad. Um, like it's not always the case because like TSM's not terrible and they have like a pretty low DPL,
Mm-hmm.
but historically all the best teams have really high DPLs because if they start getting behind at the beginning of games, like they know that the best way out of that
Mm-hmm.
is to force some fights. And so it tends to be that the best teams tend to be really high DPL and the worst teams tend to be really low. If they're low DPL, it often just means like if the other team gets a 2,000 gold lead in the first two Drakes, then they just give up and the other team just gets like Soul and Baron without any contest, like things like that. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep, I definitely have to agree with that sentiment. I've always been a big, like, when you're losing, you have to fight, because if you don't fight, you're going to lose.
yeah. Some people kind of misread that. We talk about it on the Gold Card podcast all the time with players like Jizuke is a good example.
Mhm.
Sometimes Jizuke looks really stupid, and
Yeah.
usually when he
Hmm.
looks really stupid, it's because he's trying to force some sort of fight to come back in a game like that. And when you do it and it doesn't work, you look stupid, but it's still better than just sitting in the fountain and letting the enemies take all three of your inhibitors or whatever.
Yeah, like Hooney's the same way. I think of Ignar the same way. Like, I remember Ignar games from Worlds, I think, where he was playing Pantheon support and he had like 8 deaths or something like that, and they still managed to win the game. Or like, who else was it? I think Keria. I think Keria had a couple of games like that at last year's Worlds. That's why I love like Hillsong or Afromu. It's like
Yeah,
it's not about getting 10 assists. It's about putting your team in spots to win when you're losing, and sometimes it's going to make you look like a jackass.
yeah, I totally agree.
So okay, so let's look at let's pick one team from each match and then hit the optimizer and see what happens.
Yeah, go ahead. Which kind of combinations are you thinking?
I think EG 100 Thieves, C9 Team Liquid, and so we need EG in there. Uh, Last game, I would just leave that one out. I don't think that's going to be indicative of like what people will gravitate towards tomorrow. So let's see what happens in this one.
Let's see. If you just generate with four teams, I'm sure you're going to get something pretty wonky. Uh,
Hmm.
Blabber, Vulcan, and Cloud9 from Cloud9, Spence Garen and Jizuke from EG, Someday and Tactical from 100 Thieves and Team Liquid.
So then if we think let's do Team Liquid Evil Geniuses. That's probably I think that's the best like Zag spot tomorrow.
Let's see how that comes out. It's probably support captain. Oh, you actually just can't even fit them.
Oh my god.
They just don't fit together at all.
What? That's crazy.
Let's see, just to double check and make sure the optimizer's not freaking out. I'll do like the cheapest possible version that I can and see what it make sure it doesn't fit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, even at the cheapest possible version, these two teams just do not fit together at all. So what you can do though,
4-2-1.
yeah, is go with a 4-2-1 and throw in something like find a team slot. Like TSM team slot is probably pretty cheap. Maybe you can throw in TSM team slot just to show you guys like how I use the optimizer too. So then just take out all the TSM players because I'm really looking to play a 4-2. That's part of the reason I'm building this lineup. And then you can see if with the TSM team slot if anything fits. So now you have a way to play EG and NTL together, which is going to be a super low owned combination since those two teams can't fit together at all.
Yep. Still only a support captain though. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's the best you can get. It looks like if you went all the way down to something like, let's see, who's the cheapest team slot on the slate? Probably that's
CLG
not involved in
probably.
those games. It's got to be CLG. If you go all the way down to CLG team slot, sorry, it takes me just a sec. We take out all the CLG players. Still a support.
Wow.
You can get 4 evil geniuses if you go with CLG team slot, but you're still support captain. So, yeah, there's like very hard to get these two teams together for sure.
Wow. All right. Well, I think that's basically it. The fireworks are starting to come alive, and my dog is heavily panting under my desk. So I need to like blast music so that she can't hear fireworks anymore. Thanks for joining me, John. I think another solid video. Let's hope that there was actually audio this time. According to my Streamlabs, there was audio. But that's it. That's the Infinity Edge podcast. If you want to help support the esportsdepartment.com and you want to support this podcast, make sure that when you're renewing your subscription to the esportsdepartment.com that you use the code IEDGE, IEDGE, and like, comment, subscribe on YouTube, all that good stuff. John, thanks again.
Hey man, you guys just let me know anytime you want to talk to me again.
Got it. That's all we got. Thanks, and I'll talk to you later.
Talk to you later.